everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where everything you're about to hear and see has been done in one take. I'm your host, the One Take Man. I actually wanted to do this video back in December, but decided that putting it off for right now would be more appropriate. Namely, how I would remake 50 Shades of Grey, the first of the 50 Shades trilogy. If you enjoyed this video, then go ahead and let me know, and I will also tackle the other two movies in the trilogy. Until then, let's talk about this one. The problems this one has don't really start from the script. They don't really even start in the book the script is based upon. Rather, they start in the Twilight fanfic that the book is based upon. What's the problem with the fic? The problem is it whole cloth rips characters out of the thematic framework they were designed in and brings them into a setting that really doesn't work for them. What is the thematic framework, you may ask, for Twilight? Well, in Big Joel's video on the series, he argues that one of the main themes of the series is powerlessness and how to deal with it. With Bella, this is a pretty easy theme to recognize and acknowledge. She is a baseline human who, at least in the beginning, isn't really a physical match for her two love interests. Jacob, or rather Willows in particular, have imprinting they have to deal with, meaning their choice when it comes to love and family is taken away from them, so they are in that sense powerless. Whereas vampires have bloodlust they have to contend with, meaning they have to control their appetite. Keep in mind that that is also one of the main driving conflicts in the first Twilight book, namely that Edward sees Bella not just as a potential romantic partner, but also as a potential prey. And the way the conflict gets resolved within the first book is that he manages to overcome his bloodlust enough to where he can actually save her. And keep in mind that throughout the entire Twilight series, the one character who is constantly and consistently depicted as mature and level-headed is Carlisle. The guy who has such control over his own bloodlust that he can work in a hospital where people bleed all the time and no one even suspects him, and he also teaches other vampires how to control their bloodlust. Taking a story that is so anchored in the virtue of temperance and turning it into a BDSM fanfic is perverse in a way I can't help but admire. However, E.L. James was pretty sloppy in turning this rather innocent story into something more kinky. Especially when you stop and consider that that particular actual theme, that restraining yourself can set you free, paradoxically, or at least restraining yourself in some fields can set you free in others, is very apt for a story about erotic power play, and that is what I want to build upon in this video. BDSM educator Evie Lupine also did a video where she presented her rewrite of 50 Shades of Grey. Link to that in the description. However, her video subverts the original story. I want to play it straight. In order to do that, I first want to add some amenities, some adjustments to the characters. So they need to have specific strengths that they can then let go of, so that they can become free. To that end, I'm gonna make Anna be less of a wallflower and more of an engaging, more of a character with multifaceted interests, which means that she will also be more connected to the world, meaning she will have her own email address, maybe her own laptop, her own smartphone because, well, after all, if she is on the verge of graduating college, she should have those. And Christian should also have a softer, more pensive side, something that makes him attractive beyond just his wealth and his looks. With that framework in place, let's start the story. The initial setup should still be the same. Anna is an English Lit major at Washington State University. Her roommate is Kate Kavanaugh. Kate is doing an expose on Christian Grey and needs to do an interview, but can't because she's ill. And Anna fills in for her. Anna visits Christian in his office. Christian is waiting for her. He's looking out the window as she comes in, and as she walks in, she trips. I want to keep that because reasons. However, this is the first thing that changes, because she doesn't just she stands right back up and maybe mutters some curse words under her breath because she hears that she was that clumsy right then. Christian asks her if she's fine. She says she is, and then he offers her a seat, and the interview goes on as normal. It's not. I think the movie and the books kind of have it go badly. I want it to go as professionally as possible. So Anna is asking her questions. Christian is giving his responses. Anna also challenges some of his assertions, challenges some of his answers, and also goes for follow-up questions as well as unrelated questions that Kate didn't give her in the notes. Something that shows us that she has a more active interest for what it is Kate is trying to do. So, and this makes Christian intrigued, because he sees that there is something more to her than he initially suspected. He underestimated her, and this makes him curious to the point where he wants to know more about her. And to that end, he gives her a business card with his private number when their meeting is finished. We then jump forward a few weeks to when Anna and Kate graduate. In the meantime, Christian and Anna haven't contacted each other in any way. So no visits at the workplace, no weird gifts. This is the second time they see each other. Christian still has to do the commencement speech. It will be pretty basic, except for right at the end where he declares something somewhat outlandish. Namely, he says he'll pay off everyone's student debt because he's a billionaire. He can do that. We then cut forward a few hours. Christian is at home reading something Anna wrote and published, or maybe put out. Be it, or rather, what it is that she had to write for her final dissertation. I imagine it's a short story collection or something like that. And we see that he is very much getting into it. He's very much enjoying it. And after a while, he gets called out by Anna, who is very drunk. So yeah, we also have to show what we should have mentioned. We also show what Anna's doing. She's celebrating her graduation, and after celebrating for quite a while, she calls Christian to tell him that she is drunk, and as they are talking, she is starting to crash, as in the alcohol is starting to take its toll on her. Christian realizes that, tells her that he's coming after her, and asks her where she is, and then tries to talk to her, tries to keep her engaged, tries to keep her mind active, tries to keep her from collapsing. He finally reaches the bar and gets her in the car on the back seat, and she passes out. Then she wakes up in bed in a very fancy room, still wearing the same clothes she was wearing last night. And shortly after she wakes up and notices just how bad her headache is, Christian walks in with a breakfast tray. So yeah, he brought her breakfast in bed in this version too. He tells her what happened. He also advises her that she should call her friends, let them know she's fine, and also tells her that she is in one of his guest rooms, because that was the most convenient place he could bring her to. Then he leaves her by herself. Also gives also gives her the Wi-Fi password, because he's a nice guy like that. And maybe she'll comment on how typical it is. Maybe. Moving along. She goes through her breakfast, then calls up Kate, tells her where she is, and they also have a little chat about what they should do, about what they are going to do from now on, now that they're no longer students. So yeah, that conversation ends, and also finishes up her breakfast, sets the tray aside, and walks out of her room. And she walks through around the apartment a bit, and is quite impressed by what she's seeing. Christian walks in, notices she's impressed, and says, "I'm glad you like it." To which she'll reply with something like, "Well, what can I say? It's nice to know some of your money can also buy you taste." Which makes him smirk, and then he tells her that he wants to show her something, his playroom. And she says that she wants to see it. He brings her to a room, opens it up, turns on the lights, and we see her expression as he does those things, and it goes from excitement to shock and confusion. We then cut to an over-the-shoulder camera, and we see that the room is actually full of toy train sets. Christian slowly turns around and is like, "Oh, sorry, this isn't the room I wanted to show you." Turns off the lights, closes the room, and then brings her to another room. This is the room I wanted to show you. And this room is indeed the playroom you were all thinking about. You know, red painted walls, huge bed in the middle, and a whole bunch of racks with a whole bunch of implements around the room. And takes a deep breath and then struts in, and is very curious, very interested in everything that's around her. She takes her time and takes it all in. Christian then asks her, "Are you in any way familiar with BDSM?" To which she turns around and says, I'm an English lit major from a progressive state university. What do you think?" "Just wanted to make sure," he replies. To which then her reply is, I assume there is a point to why you brought me here? To why you wanted to show me this? At which point you'll go to a shelf and reach out to one of the shelf, to one of the shelves in the room, and show her her own book and say, "Well, I figured you might enjoy it. I didn't even mention anything sexual in that book." To which Christian replies, "You didn't need to. I can just tell." "Do you really trust your instincts that much?" she asks. To which he says, "I'm a billionaire. I think my instincts have a proven track record." "Well, you're not wrong." And then she caresses some of the implements. Maybe a flogger, maybe a cat of nines, whatever. And asks, "Would you want to see these implements being used around me?" He walks up to her and says, "Well, only if you want to try them on for size, of course." To which she replies, "Maybe not now. I've got to find a new place to stay. I'm no longer a student. Washington State might kick me out soon enough. I also need to find a job. Well, you could stay here if you'd like. Here with you in your house? Yeah. Is there a problem? No, it's just weird that you would want that so soon. Well, what can I say? It gets kind of lonely. It gets kind of lonely up here. To which she smirks. And as she smirks, the doorbell rings. And Christian is like, oh. And of course now she comes up. Who comes up? She asks. He doesn't reply. He just leaves the room, turns off the light, and tells her to close the door behind her. She follows him, closes the door, and she reaches the entrance to the apartment just as he is opening up the door, and we see an older woman on the other side. "Hello, Christian," she says. "Hello, Mother." And then Mrs. Gray will go, and who is your companion? After noticing Anna. Christian introduces the two, and then Miss Gray asks Anna to accompany them for brunch. She tells her she just ate, but then Mrs. Gray is like, well, tells her that she can just sit around for drinks. To which Anna accepts, and in the ensuing conversation we find out the first details about our romantic leads. Christian in this in this scenario isn't the son of a crack whore, and there is no Mrs. Robinson. He is Dr. Graham Dee's son, born and raised. He's a pretty typical guy with outstanding ambitions who won the social lottery, and that's why he's a billionaire. And also we find out about Anna that she's the child of divorce, and that she had a falling out with her mother because the career path she has chosen for herself isn't as traditional as her mother would have liked. For instance. They talk a bit more about some other stuff, and then each go their merry way. Christian doesn't go anywhere because he lives there. Mrs. Gray goes to her place, and then Anna goes to the dorm at Washington State and clears everything out, has another chat with Katie. Katie tells her that she can get her a job at with her employer, who is her uncle's publishing company, to which Anna accepts. Then we see Anna moving in with Christian. Christian gives her a housewarming present, new laptop. They then go on dates, whereas while Anna goes through the whole application process. Then when she gets accepted, they go on a fancy dinner date, and then after the fancy dinner they have their first spend their first night together, or have sex for the first time. Nothing kinky, just just enough to show us that yeah, they're a thing now. After sex, during pillow talk, Anna then reveals that she wants to go to Georgia and visit her mother, let her know what's been going on, but that won't happen for another 2 weeks. To which Christian replies that he also has stuff to do in Georgia, and he wants to go tomorrow, so he could take her with him. She doesn't have to visit her mother immediately, but he would just like her to be around. She says yes. They go to Georgia, and then they just spend their time there. Over the day, Anna will work from home, getting herself accustomed to the protocols of her new employer. Christian will handle his business stuff over there, and then outside of that, Anna and Christian do typical coupley stuff. They go on romantic walks. They have increasingly kinky sex. Important thing, both partners escalate the kinkiness. So it's not just Christian says something, Anna says no, and then Christian insists, and then they do it. No. Christian proposes something, Anna says yes. Anna proposes something, Christian says yes, and that sort of thing. And they also in through talks we also find out that what motivates Christian besides just making more money and keeping the money he already has. After 2 weeks, we then finally also get to visit Mrs. Steele. And our first meeting, our first longer meeting with her will also be over brunch. And then after brunch, Christian will get a phone call that he is needed in Seattle, which means he'll leave Anna with her mother. Regardless, they still chat basically every night, and it is at this point that Anna first proposes the contract and also creates the first draft and sends it to him. When she returns to Seattle, Christian proposes a second draft, and then they negotiate a bit, add stuff, take stuff down, and so on and so forth, until they finally reach a version they were both happy to sign off on. The climax of the movie, pun totally intended, will be them dressing up fancily to go to a fancy dinner date, and then they go back to their place, back to the playroom, and this is where they have their first official full-on 30 minutes to an hour session. We won't show the whole session, just enough to let people who are outside of BDSM know that this is what BDSM is supposed to be like, and enough to show people who are into BDSM that, well, look at that. They got the actual fun parts of this whole enterprise right. The final moments of the movie, or the epilogue, if you will, or the falling action, will show them a few days or a few weeks after their first session, as they have adjusted and settled into their new routines. We might even add a few hints as to what would happen in potential sequels. And in the last scene, Christian will walk into the living room after having freshly arrived or having recently arrived, and he will see that Anna is dressed homely and is playing around with one of his train sets. To which Christian will say, "This is supposed to be our date night," and she will reply, "Well, you were late, so I started early. Is there a problem with that?" He will give a smile and say, "I didn't think you'd be interested in my trains." Well, someone has to take an interest in them. It's not like I've seen you go near that room any time recently. To which he replies, "There's actually another set that is compatible with the one you're playing with right now. Would you want me to show it to you?" She says yes, stands up, and follows him to the room. But the camera doesn't follow them. The camera just lingers on the train set that is already in place. And yeah, that is how the movie ends. Because I don't know, I thought it needed a bit more cute, and I thought this would be exactly the right amount of cute. Them playing with trains. I hope you enjoyed my pitch. If you did, leave a like. If you have anything you'd like to add, the comment section is widely available. And if you want to see when the next video comes out, spoiler alert, it's going to be next week. But if you want to see when exactly next week, then go ahead and subscribe. Maybe also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will require of you. Until next time, I have been the One Take Man.